I knew something was wrong the moment I stepped into the restaurant that Friday evening. The air was thick with laughter, clinking glasses, and the faint scent of roses from the centerpiece on our reserved table. But beneath the surface of civility, a tension gripped my chest so tightly I could barely breathe. My wife, Victoria, was already there, sitting at the corner table under the soft glow of the chandelier. She was laughing, really laughing with him. Her hand brushed against his arm in a way that made my stomach twist. That hand should have been resting on mine. I stopped in the doorway, frozen, staring at the scene as if my mind could rewrite it. My wife's lips curved in that familiar, effortless smile, the one that had once made me weak in the knees. But now, it felt like a dagger. She wasn't smiling at me. She was smiling at someone else. His name was Daniel, her coworker, her so-called friend, the man who had started appearing in our conversations more than I liked but whom I had chosen to trust blindly. I had laughed off the small hints, the lingering glances, the shared jokes over late-night emails, the way Victoria's voice softened when she mentioned him. I wanted to believe in her, in us. I wanted to believe that our 10 years of marriage meant more than a fleeting flirtation. But seeing her now, leaning closer to him, her laughter spilling like music, my illusion shattered. I turned away, pretending to tie my shoe, but my mind raced. My fingers clenched into fists at my sides. Should I confront her? Storm the table and demand answers? Part of me wanted to scream, to humiliate her publicly just as she humiliated me privately. But a deeper, colder part of me, the part that had been quietly observing, quietly gathering evidence, whispered a more strategic, more controlled plan. I would not give her the satisfaction of my immediate reaction. Instead, I took a deep breath, walked past the table and headed to the bar. I ordered a drink, my voice steady but my heart hammering. I kept my eyes on her from across the room, noting every gesture, every intimate laugh. She leaned in, her lips brushing Daniel's ear, and I felt bile rise in my throat. I wanted to disappear, to vanish into the night, but my body rooted me in place. I didn't have to wait long for the next blow. Daniel's wife, Sarah, appeared at the entrance. I had met her a few times at company events. Graceful, composed, but with an unmistakable air of authority. And in that moment, she was watching Victoria and Daniel the way I had always wanted to. Angry, hurt, indignant. Victoria's laughter faltered the moment she saw Sarah, but she recovered quickly, tossing her hair and straightening her posture like a soldier trying to mask fear. Daniel, however, froze. He hadn't expected her to come. And in that instant, the room seemed to contract around me. I realized that while I had been drowning in my own heartbreak, someone else had been planning their own reckoning. I watched as Sarah approached, her heels clicking on the polished floor. She didn't hesitate. Without a word, she stepped between Victoria and Daniel, looking Victoria directly in the eyes. And then, in the most shocking moment of my life, she kissed me. The world tilted, the noise around me fading into a dull hum. I didn't react immediately, my mind scrambling to process the audacity, the symbolism, the vindication in that single gesture. She kissed me in front of everyone. Her lips were cold, firm, and resolute, and they carried a message more devastating than any words could convey. I see you. No. Victoria's face went pale, and Daniel's mouth opened in shock. The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. I felt a strange surge of clarity amidst the chaos, the kind of clarity that comes only when betrayal is so blatant you have no choice but to confront it. Hope that made you feel important, Sarah said quietly, her eyes never leaving Victoria's. Because nothing else ever will. Victoria stammered, searching for words that wouldn't come. Her carefully constructed facade cracked, revealing a mixture of panic, shame, and anger. Sarah, it's not what it looks like. But no one was listening. Not really. The room had shifted. What had been a normal Friday dinner for a few friends and colleagues had turned into a public trial of hearts. I stood there, feeling the weight of years of trust and love collapsing in real time. I remember walking to the table slowly, deliberately, each step echoing in my ears. Victoria tried to rise, to reach out, but I held up my hand. Don't, I said softly, though my voice carried through the stunned silence. Her eyes filled with tears, but there was no apology, not really. Just a shaky breath, a whisper of excuses. Izzy. I shook my head. Save it. I've heard enough. I sat down, careful not to touch her. I didn't know what I felt anymore. Anger, betrayal, heartbreak, a strange flicker of relief. Relief that I had seen the truth, even if it came in the most humiliating way possible. Sarah didn't leave. She stayed by my side, a silent sentinel, as Victoria and Daniel tried and failed to explain themselves. I could see the guilt in Daniel's eyes, the way he realized the gravity of what had been exposed. And I could see the desperation in Victoria's, the same desperation I had once felt in love, now twisted into fear. The rest of the night was a blur. People whispered, some glancing at the drama unfolding with wide-eyed curiosity, others with subtle judgment. Barely noticed. I was trapped in a whirlwind of emotions, processing each revelation in fragments. Victoria had lied to me, hidden her affair, carried on as if our marriage was a facade for her amusement or convenience. Daniel had betrayed his wife, just as Victoria had betrayed me. And Sarah had delivered a reckoning I hadn't even known I needed. I left the restaurant before dessert was served. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't argue. I didn't even look back. The cool night air hit me like a slap, and I welcomed it. I needed space to think, to breathe, to plan. By the time I got home, the adrenaline had faded, replaced by a heavy, aching emptiness. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment in my head. How long had it been going on? How had I missed the signs? The late nights, the secretive texts, the way she always had an excuse ready. It all painted a picture I had been too blind or too trusting to see. I pulled out my phone and stared at her last message. Can't wait to see you tonight. Zoxo. The words, once sweet, now felt like daggers. And as I stared at them, a plan began to form. Not a plan of revenge, not yet, but a plan of self-preservation. The next morning I found a note on the kitchen counter. It wasn't from her. It was from Sarah. Meet me at the park at noon. We need to talk. I didn't hesitate. By noon, I was sitting on a bench overlooking the small lake, the autumn leaves swirling around us. Sarah arrived, her expression calm but determined. She sat down beside me, not touching me, but close enough to share the weight of the moment. I didn't do that to embarrass her, she said, her voice quiet but firm. I did it so you'd see the truth. Sometimes, people need to be confronted in ways they can't ignore. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. It worked. She gave a small smile. Victoria will figure out soon enough that the world doesn't revolve around her games. But you need to decide what comes next. You can't let her betrayal define you, Izzy. Not forever. Her words struck a chord. For the first time since that night, I felt a flicker of clarity. I wasn't weak. I hadn't failed. I had simply been blindsided by someone I loved, and now I had the chance to reclaim my life. In the days that followed, I quietly gathered evidence of Victoria's infidelity. Messages, emails, pictures. Not for vengeance. At least, not in the public humiliating way she had betrayed me, but to protect myself, to prepare for the conversations that were inevitable. Victoria confronted me the next week, her tone sharp, defensive. I can explain. It's complicated. I let her talk, listened to the excuses, the rationalizations, the pleas. But I didn't interrupt. I didn't argue. I simply looked at her, calm, composed, and replied, I know. And it doesn't matter anymore. Her face twisted in disbelief. You're not angry. I am, I said softly. But anger doesn't change what happened. It doesn't erase the years of lies. What matters now is how I move forward. And I won't let you hurt me anymore. She tried to reach for me, but I stepped back. For the first time, I felt the weight of freedom settle over me. I had loved her deeply, but love wasn't enough to ignore betrayal. Weeks later, I ran into Sarah again. She smiled, a genuine warm smile this time, not the fierce intensity of that first moment. Feeling better. He nodded. Stronger, I think. And grateful. For your honesty, for the clarity. She shrugged lightly. Sometimes the truth comes in the most unexpected forms. And it did. Victoria's laughter with Daniel, Daniel's shame, Sarah's bold kiss. All of it had been a storm I didn't ask for. But storms clear the air. They reveal what was hidden. They leave destruction, yes, but also space to rebuild. I walked away that day feeling a strange sense of peace. My marriage was over, but my dignity, my self-respect, my ability to love again, it was intact. And I realized something crucial. Betrayal may break a person, but it doesn't have to destroy them. Sometimes it simply teaches them how to rise stronger than ever. As I left the park, I felt the weight lift from my shoulders. The sun was low, casting a golden glow over the lake, the leaves shimmering like embers in the wind. And for the first time in months, I allowed myself to smile. Not for Victoria. Not for Daniel. Not even for Sarah. But for me. Because I had survived the betrayal. I had faced the truth. And I had walked away with my heart still beating, my spirit unbroken, and a world of possibilities ahead of me.